Hi, I'm David Hakimi with Berkshire Hathway HomeServices. I run the #1 producing mid-sized team for Berkshire Hathway in the state of Colorado. And personally, I'm one of the top selling agents who specializes in new construction purchases. I personally sell 2 to 3 new construction homes every month over the course of the year to my clients. So I'm super well versed with the new construction process. And today I want to share a little bit of what I've learned over the last 10 years of specializing in new construction purchases with you. The first thing I will say though, if you have the ability to do it, especially if you're in Colorado, please feel free to reach out to me. As much as I love making these informational videos, I'd much rather help you directly and represent you with the builder. So feel free to reach out to me. It doesn't affect what you pay for the house. It doesn't cost you anything out of pocket, and it doesn't change anything about the transaction. You're actually entitled to bring an agent, and the builder will compensate the agent, and it doesn't change or affect what you pay for the home at all, and it doesn't cost you anything directly. So there's no real reason why you shouldn't take representation. However, I get it. You may be in another state. You might not have someone that you trust that specializes in new construction, because not all agents are well versed. So you want to make sure that if you do take an agent, you take someone that has quite a bit of experience in the process of new construction. However, that said, assuming you can't do that, let's get right into the questions. The first thing that I ask any builder right off the bat is how much deposit money is required to start the process. You know, a lot of times they're going to require either a percentage of the base price and the lot premium, or it could be just a flat fee depending on the builder. Different builders have different policies. However, the one thing you really want to get into, whether it's a flat fee or a percentage, is there anything additional as you get deeper into the process that they can require more money from you? That's one of the things a lot of people fail to ask, and it's huge because a lot of the percentage-based builders charge a percentage up front of the base price of the house and the lot premium, but then when they send you to the design center, they're going to require an additional percentage of what you spend in the design center. Now, some of the builders will give you up to a certain amount that you can spend, say $10,000 or $20,000, before they require an extra percentage, because they feel that that's a customary and normal amount to spend in the design center, so they're not going to try and tack anything onto it. But if you go above that amount, they're going to require as much as 50% of the additional. However, there are some builders, Toll Brothers, one that I can think of here in Colorado, charges you, at least the last time I dealt with them, of course this could have changed, but the few times I've dealt with them, they wanted 50% of your design center spend added to the down payment right off the bat. They didn't give you any base amount that you were allowed to spend. So you need to be prepared with some of these builders that the deposit could be a percentage of the base price of the home, and it could also be an additional percentage of any of your structural options or design center options. So you definitely need to find that stuff out and get clear on it right off the bat. The next big question that I ask about the deposit as well is that deposit hard from day one? Hard meaning refundable or non-refundable. Hard would obviously refer to a non-refundable deposit. With some of the builders, the minute you hand over your deposit check, that money is theirs regardless of what happens. Now, fortunately, builders like that are the minority. Most builders will give you one contingency and one contingency only, and that boils down to, can you qualify with their in-house lender? Because of course, if you make the application and you give it your best shot to qualify for the home you want to buy from them, and they simply can't get you approved, most of them will give you the deposit money back. However, you want to find out what the time frame that they allow that in, because some of them who do give it back only give you 5 or 6 days to make the application and get an approval or a decline from their lender. So it's a really quick process that they're forcing you to go through if it's one of the ones with a short fuse on it. Now, others will give you up to a full month or 60 days, but once again, these are questions that you want to get really clear on, because you're usually talking about a lot of money. The absolute minimum deposit that I've ever seen any builder require is $5,000, and I've seen people write checks as big as $65,000. So you need to be really, really clear what your rights are right off the bat as far as getting that money back in the event that something goes sideways and the transaction doesn't move forward. Then the other one, I just touched on it a little bit, is in-house approval. Most of these builders are going to require that even if you've already got a pre-approval letter from the lender of your choice and you walk in with it on day one, they're going to say, that's great, we are glad that you did that, we're happy to see the initiative that you've started the process, but we need you to also qualify with our lender, because they just simply don't trust any outside lender. They want to know that somebody that's in their in-house organization also agrees that you're qualified. The last thing any of these builders want to do is tie up a piece of their inventory and maybe start to put specific selections in a house that you've chosen that could be hard to sell to somebody else, just to find out 6-7 months into the process, you didn't really qualify and you can't close on it. So these guys always, most of the time, want to see that that you are qualified with their in-house people. Now, the next thing you want to ask on that same line of questioning would be incentives. A lot of these builders will have specials where they give you a free finished basement, or 3% toward your closing costs, or 3% towards design center, or it could be a flat fee, $10,000 or $15,000 toward closing costs or design center. However, most of them are going to tie those incentives to 1 to 3 things. Typically it could be they will require that you not only qualify with their lender, but you actually use their lender. And of course, in that situation, you want to shop that lender hard against your outside lenders to make sure they're competitive, and then they're not trying to get you to take a much higher set of rates or closing costs than what is customary on the market. So you do have the right, if they do require you to use that lender, to shop the lender and keep them honest and make sure that they're not overcharging you. However, they could tie it to other things too. They could tie it to the use of their title company, which isn't that big a deal. The builder title companies are usually fairly reasonable and don't have outrageous fees, but their customer service, quite frankly, isn't always the best. They know they're fishing out of a barrel, so to speak. So they could be in a situation where they dictate dates and times to you rather than giving you your choice. I see that a lot with the builders. They tell you, you're gonna close this day, this time. And if you tell them, well, I've got a work meeting at that time, sorry, Charlie, cancel it. This is when we're closing. So they can be pretty inflexible because unfortunately they know that they have you sort of as a captive client, and they don't really care what kind of online reviews or good word of mouth you leave because they've got a steady stream of business being fed to them by that builder. So just be careful when you take that incentive that you make sure it isn't tied to things that are just too distasteful for you. The next one would be contingencies. Most people that are buying a new construction house, not all, but a lot of people have a current house that maybe they've gained quite a bit of equity on, and they're ready to sell that one and cash in and upgrade and now build their dream home. So you need to find out what that builder's policies are with regard to contingency. Are they going to require that that house is completely sold before you contract on theirs? Are they going to give you a week or a month after contracting to get yours under contract? Or are they gonna let you run the whole 10 to 11 months that it takes to build to get it under contract as long as it's sold before you close? And then the other thing you may run into as well is if you make enough money, you may show that you can support both house payments and your debt to income ratio. And if you can demonstrate to them that you qualify even with both payments, they may waive the contingency altogether and allow you to do whatever you want to do because you qualify on paper financially to float both house payments, so they don't really care if you keep a contingency. Of course, those are all questions you want to find out. The other thing that I've been running into a lot lately, and this is a big one, we're seeing some of the small mom and pop builders have implemented a policy where they put a clause in their contract that allows them to raise or increase the price that you pay for the house over the period of construction. So the day you sit down and you contract it and sign the contract with their base price and your structural options and maybe design center choices, that's all great. But a lot of these small builders are basically saying that if materials increase or labor rates increase, and of course they're going to increase, they're going to tell you that that price has the ability to float upward between the time you contract and the time you close. Now this can be bad news because it comes back to that deposit. If they raise the price arbitrarily to a level that you're not good with and you don't close, guess what? Most of the time they're going to keep all that substantial deposit money. So this is possibly the biggest question that you want to ask currently in 2022 is, do you raise the price? And if so, my advice to you would be probably stand up and walk away and go find another builder, unless this builder has some unique lot or something that you just absolutely can't live without. You could be putting yourself in a big risk if you sign a contract with a builder that has a clause in place that allows them to raise the price. So then the next one would be, if it's a dirt start, you really want to ask them, just so that you've got a good bearing on how expensive this house is going to get, what is the average buyer in this subdivision buying my model spending in the design center? And they can usually narrow that down and say most people are spending 15 to 20,000, most people are spending 20 to 30, 30 to 50, whatever the range might be, depending on the price range of the house and the size of the house. They can normally tell you what the typical consumer that's bought in the neighborhood has spent. And you want to know that because they'll sit you down initially and they'll show you the base price, they'll show you the structural options, but then they're going to basically leave that one piece hanging out there as the variable. Is it, this could go up or down depending on what you spend a design center. So you don't want to get hit with any surprises. So definitely try and pin that sales agent down to tell you what the typical spend in the neighborhood is. The other thing you may do too, to give you a good bearing, just to give you an idea of how much it took to get the model home to look like the model home looks. You know, the model homes are typically over the top with every conceivable option in them. So I typically ask as well, can you tell me what the build sheet on this model looked like? How much was spent in design on the model? And sometimes they don't know because it's just such a crazy number and they give the designer such carte blanche that they don't even keep track of it. That's usually not a good situation. It could tell you that that model may be way, way nicer than anything you could conceivably build without overpricing the house for the neighborhood. So I always ask what they spend on the model and what the average homeowner is spending to get a nice looking house completed in the neighborhood. Most good salespeople can give you a pretty good idea so that you're not 100% blindsided after you leave the design center. And then the last thing you want to ask about is how long is it going to take to complete the house? That's a pretty basic one, but it can vary. I've seen it range in Colorado anywhere from 6 months all the way to a year and a half. So I've personally had people with some of the what you see is what you get builders who limit the choices. Those guys typically move faster. A lot of times they can knock one out in 6 months, but I've also seen some of the design center style builders that give more options take up to a year and a half. In fact, I just closed on a guy that it did take them a year and a half. He wasn't pleased because the interest rates have definitely been climbing, and you know, he wasn't thrilled about where the interest rates ended up when he was finally able to close on it versus where they started when he contracted it. I mean, it is the nature of the market, but that's definitely a question. You want to know how long is it going to take, and you might even ask them if they offer a long-term interest rate lock. If it is going to take a long time, some of the builders are offering free 1-year locks, free 6-month locks, etc., or greatly discounted, or they're giving quite a bit of money towards the buy down of that extended lock. I would definitely recommend an extended lock in the current market climate where rates are going up. If you're doing a dirt start, you don't want to end up in a situation where the rate was one thing when you started it, but by the time you're in range of a rate lock, the rates have gotten so crazy that now you no longer qualify, or you simply don't want the payment at the level that the payment ends up. So these are all things you need to talk to the sales rep about. Of course, if you're here in Colorado, once again, call me. If you think of anything else that we didn't cover today, feel free to leave it in the comments below. I'm happy to add more questions. There are quite a few more things I could tell you to ask. For sake of brevity, we're not gonna bore you with a super long video, but if you want to hear anything specific, leave it in the comments below, and we're happy to make a follow-up that answers the rest of your questions. Thanks again. Bye-bye.